Kenya's 43rd, 44th, and 45th communities. Three stories of belonging. For many years, Kenyans often spoke about the famous 42 tribes of Kenya, but behind that number were communities whose stories were not always fully recognized. Some had lived in Kenya for generations. They worked here. They raised their children here. They built homes here. And yet, some struggled with something many of us take for granted: the simple right to say, "This is my country, I belong here." Then Kenya's story began to change. Three communities would later become symbols of recognition, citizenship, and belonging. These are the stories of the 43rd, 44th, and 45th communities. The 43rd on the Makonde. The first story is that of the Makonde people. The Makonde originally came from Mozambique. Some came to Kenya during the colonial period to work, including on sisal plantations along the coast. Over the years, generations of Makonde people were born and raised in Kenya. But despite living in the country for decades, many faced difficulties proving their Kenyan citizenship. Imagine being born in a country, growing up there, knowing no other home, yet still struggling to obtain the documents that officially recognize you as a citizen. For the Makonde, this was more than paperwork. It was about identity, it was about dignity, and about identity, it was about dignity, and it was about belonging. After years of advocacy and the struggle, Kenya took an important step. In 2017, the Makonde were formally recognized as a Kenyan community and became widely described as Kenya's 43rd tribe. For the Makonde, recognition meant more than gaining a number. It meant that a community that had spent years asking to be seen could finally say, "We are Kenyan." The 44th, Kenyans of Asian heritage. Then came another historic moment. In July 2017, Kenya formally recognized Kenyans of Asian heritage as one of the communities making up the Kenyan nation. Many families of Asian heritage had deep roots in Kenya, with some tracing their family histories back generations, including to the period of the construction of the Uganda Railway. These families were not simply visitors passing through. They had built businesses, they had raised families, they had contributed to Kenya's economy and society, and over generations, Kenya had become home. On 21st July 2017, Gazette Notice number 7245 declared Kenyans of Asian heritage to constitute a community that is one of the tribes of Kenya. And so the number often referred to as the 42 tribes had another chapter added. The 44th community represented another reminder that Kenya's identity is bigger than a simple list of names. Kenya is made up of people whose histories, cultures, and journeys have all helped shape the country. The 45th, the Shona. But there was still another story waiting to be told, the story of the Shona community. The Shona came to Kenya from what is now Zimbabwe during the colonial period, with many arriving as Christian missionaries. They lived in Kenya for decades. Their children were born here. Their families grew here. Kenya became home, but many remained stateless for years. Without citizenship documents, ordinary things could become extremely difficult, including accessing employment, financial services, education, and other opportunities. For decades, the Shona community waited for recognition. Then came December 12, 2020. During Kenya's Jamhuri Day celebrations, President Uhuru Kenyatta announced that members of the Shona community would be granted Kenyan citizenship. UNHCR welcomed the decision, noting that 1,670 stateless Shona people were to receive citizenship. It was a powerful moment. A community that had spent decades living in uncertainty was finally being told, "You belong." The Shona were therefore widely described as Kenya's 45th tribe, and the journey did not end with the announcement. In 2021, thousands more Shona community members received official documentation confirming their Kenyan citizenship. Three communities, one Kenya. The stories of the Makonde, Kenyans of Asian heritage, and the Shona are different. Their origins are different. Their cultures are different. Their journeys to Kenya are different. But their stories share something powerful: the search for belonging. The Makonde fought to have their Kenyan identity recognized. Kenyans of Asian heritage had generations of history rooted in Kenya, formally acknowledged, and the Shona finally received citizenship after decades of statelessness. These stories remind us that being Kenyan is not only about where your ancestors came from, it is also about the history you build here, the families you raise here, the communities you contribute to, and the home you call Kenya. So the next time you hear someone talk about Kenya's 42 tribes, remember that Kenya's story did not stop there. There was the 43rd, the Makonde, the 44th, Kenyans of Asian heritage, and the 45th, the Shona. Three communities, three remarkable journeys, and one powerful message. Kenya is a country whose story continues to grow. Because sometimes recognition is more than a title. Sometimes recognition means finally hearing the words, "You belong here."
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below and give this video a big thumbs up. And